Good morning, everybody. My name is Martin Paver, and I'm really delighted to be talking to you today about project data analytics. So a big thanks to the APM and the SIG for inviting me along. I really do appreciate it. So in terms of this session today, I'm trying to be intentionally controversial. So disruption is coming. Are you ready for it? So the world is going to look very, very different. Now, in terms of planning, monitoring and control, the future is in your hands. It's all down to you what you do with this information today. And in terms of the rest of the conference as well, I think you get some real insights. So I think you've got to ask yourself, what is your response? So what you're going to do personally, what you're going to do organizationally as a consequence of this brave new world of project data analytics. And from our sort of perspective, it's a case of respond or be disrupted. I think that's where the market's going. And I'll give you a lot of insights into that through the next slides. So in terms of why, and if some of you have seen me talk before, you'll have seen this slide. This is my go-to slide. So this is a slide I got from Crossrail in 2018. So all the data in red comes out the back of a program and it goes into the operator. So that goes into Rail for London and they sort of manage the Elizabeth line. All the data in blue is a big exhaust plume from the back of the program. And back in August 2018, Crossrail was a very impressive program. The guys who came along were the blue-eyed sort of boys. We had a capacity crowd there. Everyone wanted to listen to them. And then the shine came off it about a month later and they started to announce all the delays. And sort of very topical at the moment, came out last week, is this report from Crossrail from the National Audit Office. And it's stating there that they had no realistic plan to complete the program. And in terms of the new management, they had to largely start from scratch. And that doesn't sort of reflect with what the guys were telling us back in August. So there's a mismatch between the perception of the planning at the time and the next management team who thought that we need to completely replan. So through a project controls lens, it's very clear that there's something we need to do to rectify this situation. And in terms of this next example is there's a vehicle called CVRT, which is a small tank, basically entered service in 1971. And when I was a lad, I worked on it and I was responsible for the engine and gun upgrade. I then transferred to Tracer in 1992, and that project became Ajax in a different guise. And 30 years later, so it's just 30 years from that program kicking off, we're in a situation now where there's a massive overspend on it, and the project is not performing. So this is not a one-off with Crossrail. It's not a one-off with sort of this project either. And it's not because people don't know what they're doing. There's some very, very, very competent people on these programs. It's because of systemic issues and lots of different reasons to it. And we can start to get sort of under the skin of those reasons through project data analytics. So if we look at this research from Alex Budzier and Professor Bent Fluvier from a sort of sample of 12,000 projects, only 1 in 200 projects is delivering on time, on budget, and so as per the benefits case. Now that is shocking, really, right? It's indefensible. So as a profession, we've got to change that, right? We can't sit back on our sort of laurels and say, if we tweak things, if we make things incrementally sort of better, we're going to fix this problem, because it will not change it, right? It's going to move it from 1 in 200 to sort of 1%, right? Now, it's still a criminal number. We need to be bolder. We need to think really, really differently. So I'd like to put some further context in for you as well. So in terms of that backdrop, and this is something I picked up a couple of weeks ago. Somebody sent me this. So it's a Public Accounts Committee talk. It's all videoed. And there's a bit.ly link there at the bottom where you can go and watch this. So there's a chap from the Public Accounts Committee who said, in terms of your capital programme, is it on track despite the pandemic? And the lady then responded, and she is a senior civil servant in Treasury, and she said there's no discernible impact of COVID on the delivery of the portfolio. Now, I speak to construction sector a lot, and they saw between a 20 and 30% productivity hit last year. And that's not finding its way into the numbers. So I think that there's a mismatch between the project controls that you guys are managing and what's being filtered up to the top. And you can see that in terms of that feedback. Now, whether they're right or wrong, I don't know. But what indicates to me is there's a mismatch between what's happening through construction sort of major companies and what's happening here. So somebody else from the Public Accounts Committee is Dame Meg Hillier, who has got a cracking quote there about our inability to learn from these mistakes from previous projects. So we call it lessons learned, and it's not really working, right? We're not learning from the experience of all these previous projects. So myself, Grant Finlay, and a chap called Rob Bryan as well met with the Public Accounts Committee in early June. And basically they're very interested in project data analytics. So our 30-minute slot extended to over an hour, and they've invited us back. So I think this is now at the very top of government. So in terms of project control as well, I'd just like to challenge the very notion of project control. So I'd say that it's wrong. So most projects that we're working on have got some sort of complex components to them, and you can't plan your way out of complexity. So there's a bit.ly link there to Dave Snowden's blogs. It's worth you having a look at those. But basically, a project such as HS2 has got some very complex components to it, where it's emergent, right? The situation is emergent, and some of it is very ordered. So if you're laying track, it's very ordered. If you're in a situation where a swamp is turning up and is concreting himself into the underground, then you can't plan your way out of it, right? It's very uncertain, it's emergent. So data can help us with that. It can help us to understand where we've got the predisposition to variance, so where we are going to sort of enter into complexity and what we need to do about it. So we need to start to deploy these probes so we can understand it. It's a different way of managing, and I don't think we're quite on this yet. So Dave Snowden's going to come along to the Project Data Analytics meetup soon, and is going to give us some more insights. So in terms of recent developments, so what we're trying to do through this is to really understand the art of the possible with Project Data Analytics. So we set a task force up, which is really cool. And that task force is looking at a 10 times improvement over those figures that I showed you before. So we've got a vision, we've got an ambition, and we've got sort of more things being worked up at the moment. So we've got a how to get started guide, and that's going to be out soon, and that's in collaboration with the APM. We're also working up a business case and a blueprint as well. So that's in train at the moment. So this task force is multi-sector. We've got a lot of people involved in it. There's about something like 100 people in total through all the work streams that we've got going on. And that's making a difference. And if you'd like to be involved in that, then please reach out to me. I've got my LinkedIn details at the end. In terms of Highways England as well, so this is interesting. So Highways England have now sort of declared is there going to be an organisation which is data-driven. So data-driven project delivery organisation. And they pivoted to that a few months ago. They've now got a big program in place called Digital by Default. They are going this way, that is for certain. We're also working with some other departments, and they're working on a project data analytics strategy, a roadmap and implementation plan. So you'll see more of this coming out in the forthcoming months. So things are changing. And I've been knocking on the door of some of these organizations for 5 years. And I said, not now, you know, there's other priorities, etc. I think that is changing. The market is changing, and we're seeing a lot of developments. You've probably seen that Forecast have got £19 million for their approach to project management and resource planning. So that was last month, I think it was, maybe 2 months ago. M-Plan's got about $19 million, including a big chunk of money from Google Ventures, part of the Alphabet Group. A few weeks ago, Notes and Links got a load of money, and Reconstruct's got a load of money. So what this says to me is the market is now hotting up, right? Some of these companies have been doing this for a few years, and the market is now hot. So really getting ready for the next generation of project controls and project delivery. So it's $65 million in 4 months. And it's happening now. So in terms of M-Plan, it's working with Kia. So it's using that technology to start to plan out bids. We've also got a construction data trust. So we've been talking about this for 3 years. It's now got funding from 6 chief execs. We're spinning up the architecture and the infrastructure at the moment. And we're pooling data so we can address these productivity challenges. And it's growing interest from lots of other organizations. So what does that mean? So imagine that we could pool the data on 40 hospitals. Each of those hospitals, then, we can build on the shoulders of those who's gone before. Instead of selecting a different supplier per hospital and we all start from scratch every time, we build on the shoulders of those people who's gone before. We know what is predisposed to variance. We know what the technical challenges have been. So collaboration becomes key. Data-driven project delivery is front and center, right? It's a fundamental premise of building on those projects that's gone before. So we can drive up productivity, and most important as well, we can drive up delivery confidence. So that then flips the market then, because organizations win work based upon their ability to extract insights from this data and to innovate. It's not necessarily the most economically advantageous tender. We start to change the rules of the game. So it's really disruptive. And imagine if we could do that in the North Sea, right? So there's $48 billion worth, or pounds worth, sorry, of North Sea decommissioning. There's about 4,000 wells that need to be sort of decommissioned. They're owned by different people. So imagine what could be achieved if we start to pool that project delivery data. So we're working with the Net Zero Technology Centre and we're working with the Oil and Gas Authority to drive that through. If we can then use those principles to sort of underpin energy transition, we can then get to this net zero future a lot quicker. And it's by working collaboratively and start to pool all of this experience. There's a couple of sort of webinars that we held as well. So one was on transforming risk management and one was on project controls. They've both been chaired very kindly by Sue Kershaw, who's the president of the APM. And there's some great insights there. So some bit.ly links there if you're interested in watching those videos. But the project controls one has got some very learned ladies on there who's talking about the impact of project data analytics on project controls. I think it's a fascinating talk. So I'd commend it to you. So in terms of some examples, so this is something that a team of people knocked up in the last hackathon. They got first prize for it. The challenge was set by Costain, so there's some cost engineers from Costain. And basically they work up their sort of costs by going through something called the Spons book. They look through the Spons book and they would price a job. And that takes them 40 minutes sort of using a traditional approach for a work package, and it takes them 5 minutes now through this technology they've worked up, which is basically a Power App, and they can start to squirt this into things like Power BI as well and get dashboard views on it. So it's going to transform the way they're working. So this is project controls professionals developing solutions for their own problems. This is another one. So this was set by Jacobs, and this is saying basically, can we predict if a project is going to be unprofitable? All right. So can we predict it 6 months out? So as a team of people, they worked on this for 2 days, and basically they got a result with about 83% accuracy, which is pretty cool. And what that tells us is which of those features in terms of all the data set lead to the greatest predisposition to this variance. Another one from Baker Hughes. So they work on various oil and gas projects, and they've got something like 111 projects here with 96,000 activities. And they've said And can we go through those activities and work out which activities are more predisposed to variance? And in terms of, can we feed that back into the original estimate so we can estimate better next time round? That problem was solved in 2 days. So they came up and they knew which departments were more sort of predisposed to variance, and they came up with a machine learning model so they can then go back and to change the estimates. So that's just some examples, and there's probably something like 100 examples now coming out of the hackathons. There is a phenomenal sort of amount of capability out there which now can be plugged in and start to be used. And some of this stuff is not that difficult if you know what you're doing. So it's all very, very, very cool, right? It's very cool technology, but is industry ready? Is your organization ready? Are you ready? So you need a vision, you need a strategy about where you're going, you need your skills in place, you need to be working collaboratively as well, because it's an end-to-end data pipeline. You can't just look at your data. You need the data in place with all of the things like data security, your end-to-end pipelines, and it needs to be connected as well. It needs to be connected data. If it's not connected, you don't get the inferences out of it. So I think the question for you guys out there today is, basically, do you continue your standard role in terms of project controls? Is that where you're going to go next? Are you going to turn into a tool jockey because of all of these things from NPlan coming out and nodes and links or whatever? So you've got a black box tool there, black box algorithm. Is that where you're going to be, where you just plug some numbers in and see what it spits out and then go and make some decisions? Or are you going to turn into a project data analyst? And it's somebody who's understanding the data pipelines, getting inside of the machine learning models and really starting to understand this. It is a next generation of project delivery. So in terms of us, we think this is a step change, right? We've been advocating this for the last 5 years. So we've set up the project data analytics meetup. We've set up the hackathons as well. We've got the task force going. So it's about unleashing your superpowers. And we need to unlock these new doors so you can predict the future. That's a cool job. That is such a cool job. And I think it's a transformational job. You'll stand out from your peers. So what we've been trying to do for the last year or so is to build capability across the industry. And we saw that that capability was not there. So we went to government and we set up an academy to do it. So that academy is now paid for by government through the training levy. So it's free for most organizations, or 5% contribution for a smaller organization. And that enables you to upskill your teams. So we've got project professionals on it, project controls, project managers, risk managers, all sorts of people on it, who's now starting to get upskilled as a consequence. And they range from 19-year-olds up to 60, right? So we've got people on there. So I think the world's changing. Project delivery is changing, and this is a massively exciting future. If you'd like to get involved in it, then please reach out to the task force. Please get involved in the hackathons and come to the community as well. We've got a great event on Wednesday night where the Infrastructure Projects Authority is coming to talk about their approach to data. And that's the Director of Data and Benchmarking, etc. So we've got some very learned people involved. So please reach out and get involved. And if you want to contact me as well, there's my LinkedIn details. Please reach out to me. And if you're interested in the academy as well and getting upskilled in this stuff and getting ready for the next generation of project delivery, then please reach out and we'll put you in contact with the right people. So if you've got any questions, please sort of post them in chat and I'll follow them up in due course. And I think the next talk is about to start in a few minutes. So thanks a lot for sparing the time and for listening in. It's really transformational stuff, and I do hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.